The name Eli Matthews, he had only been at school for a few days, and yet he had already become the subject of whispered conversations in the locker room. Not because of anything he had done, but because of the way he did nothing. I heard it all. While pulling my shirt over my head, while tying my sneakers, those hushed voices buzzing right by my ears. The new kid looks weird, doesn't smile, doesn't talk, probably got something wrong upstairs. He caused trouble at his old school. The truth was, no one really knew where Eli came from or what he had done. But at Millstone, sometimes silence alone was enough to earn you a conviction, just like it had for me once. That day, during basketball practice, I sat at the edge of the court pretending to retie my laces while I watched. Coach divided us into pairs, and fate, or maybe bias, ended up pairing Eli with Chase Dalton, the leader of the troublemakers around here. At first, everything seemed normal. But when it was time to pass the ball, Eli bounced it back with a slight push, just enough force for it to slam squarely into Chase's chest. Not enough to hurt, but enough to be felt. Clearly. Chase gave a low, sharp laugh, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Right then I knew. Chase had made up his mind. Eli would have to be taught a lesson, and it began with the usual dirty little tricks. A wad of chewing gum secretly stuck onto Eli's jacket, a small kick that sent his backpack spilling across the hallway, a folded piece of paper shoved into the crack of his locker. Go back to your ghetto. Eli? He didn't get angry, didn't complain, didn't say a word. He just picked up his things, dusted off the mess, and kept walking, as quietly and untouchably as a breeze no one could catch. And it was that silence that drove Chase and his gang even crazier. They needed Eli to react. They needed a punch, a shouting match, something they could smash and blame. But Eli refused to give them that. And when bullies start to feel small in front of someone they can't break, things only get worse. In the cafeteria, Chase publicly humiliated Eli. "Hey, Matthews, you from Detroit or something? Need me to lend you a bulletproof vest?" A few kids burst out laughing. Hollow laughter. The rest kept their heads down, staring into their lunch trays, avoiding the scene. Eli? Still the same. Calmly lifting another fork full of spaghetti onto his plate, not even sparing Chase a glance. From an invisible shadow, Eli had become a crack in the surface, and I could see it clearly. Chase Dalton was losing it, and he would do whatever it took to crush that crack before it had the chance to spread. When Eli Matthews walked through the doors of Millstone High in Lansing, Michigan, hardly anyone bothered to look up. No greetings, no curious stares. Just a rush of bodies and the cold clang of the school bell echoing through the hallways. Just another transfer student, dropped in halfway through the year. No one cared. His worn-out backpack sagged off one shoulder, his hoodie frayed at the edges, and Eli moved the way kids from tough neighborhoods learned to move. Quietly, cautiously, like he had to read every room before daring to breathe. Not out of fear, but because he had learned that attention was a luxury he couldn't afford. Outside, dirty streaks of snow still clung to the sidewalks. The air was sharp and biting, and hurried footsteps stamped across the hallway tiles. Eli paused in front of his newly assigned locker. A cheap sticker slapped onto a meaningless number. He glanced briefly at the unfamiliar faces streaming by like a river. No fear, just caution. In his first period math class, Eli entered to only a few side glances. A girl in the back corner whispered something to her friend. The teacher offered a small, polite smile and gestured toward an empty seat near the back. No introductions, no welcome. No one cared to ask his name. Eli didn't mind. In Detroit, where he had grown up, silence was a form of safety. He dressed plainly, wore regular shoes, no flash, no noise. Uncle Marcus, the man who had raised him, called it moving like a shadow. In neighborhoods like theirs, the more you stood out, the easier you became a target. But Millstone High wasn't Detroit. This was a place of brand-name jackets, spotless sneakers, and easy, confident laughter that filled the halls like a background soundtrack. Here, everyone acted like they were starring in their own perfect high school movie. No one spoke to Eli, but he noticed. He saw the glances sliding down to his worn shoes, saw a boy in gym class wrinkle his nose at the sight of Eli's faded hoodie, like it carried the dust of another world. On the third day at lunch, Eli sat alone, a corner table in the cafeteria. His tray carried limp cold spaghetti, a speckled overripe banana, and a bland carton of chocolate milk. He ate slowly, as if listening to the pulse of the entire room. And that's when the laughter started. "Hey, you bring that food straight from the Great Depression or what?" Eli looked up. A tall guy in a varsity jacket stood a few feet away. Chase Dalton, football star, co-captain of the team and self-proclaimed king of the junior class. Two boys flanked him, Zach Monroe and Brady Kent, both snickering like they were about to see a show. Eli said nothing. Chase sneered louder, his voice carrying across the nearby tables. "Dude eats like he's never seen real food before." More laughter followed. Not everyone, but enough to carve a deeper silence into the room. Eli kept his head down, bit into his banana. No glare, no comeback. A shove from Zach, the smaller sidekick, followed. "Yo, you deaf or just stupid?" Eli only glanced at him once. "No more." Then he picked up his milk carton, stood up. "I'm done eating," he said, voice low, steady, without a hint of emotion. And so Eli walked away, leaving behind his half-eaten tray and a table full of hollow laughter. That afternoon, snow fell sparsely across Millstone High's campus, but not enough to cover the cracks forming in the air. Eli Matthews left his science class with a heavy backpack slung over one shoulder. He didn't pay attention to the footsteps behind him, not until a sudden shove from behind sent his book scattering across the hallway. A soft ripple of laughter followed. He didn't need to look back. He already knew. Chase Dalton. A finger jabbed quickly toward Eli's books, a mark of smug dominance. "Careful the charity case," Chase muttered, just loud enough for his crowd to hear. Eli knelt, picked up each book, one by one. No reaction, no glance backward. He stood, brushed the dust from the covers, and kept walking. In his mind, he repeated, "Don't react." It was the first rule at any school, the rule to stay safe. But Millstone High was different. Silence wasn't a shield. It was a target. The next day, when Eli opened his locker, a crudely scrawled message in whiteout stared back at him. "Charity case." He exhaled slowly and wiped it away with his sleeve. The words vanished easily, but the cold, hollow feeling in his chest remained. That evening, like always, Eli caught the number 12 bus out to the city's fringes, through battered streets, to a gravel lot where Uncle Marcus rented space for his old boxing gym. The battered sign Marcus Boxing Club swung in the night wind. Stepping inside, the familiar mix of sweat, leather, and old hand wraps hit Eli like a rough, familiar hug. Marcus spotted him and gave a small nod. "All right?" "Just school," Eli muttered. No need for more explanation. Marcus didn't ask. He just gestured toward the ring. "Get up there. That's what the floor's for. To leave it all behind." No words, no dramatics. Eli changed, wrapped his hands, and stepped onto the mat. He punched hard. Each left hook tore through Chase's sneering laugh. Each straight jab drove into the scornful stares of his classmates. No shouting, no revenge. Just steady breathing. Pure focus. Silence. Uncle Marcus watched from the sidelines, his gaze heavy but filled with pride. He knew his nephew didn't need anyone to teach him about strength. What he needed to master was restraint. When Eli Matthews walked through the doors of Millstone High in Lansing, Michigan, hardly anyone bothered to look up. No greetings, no curious stares, just a rush of bodies and the cold clang of the school bell echoing through the hallways. Just another transfer student, dropped in halfway through the year. No one cared. His worn-out backpack sagged off one shoulder, his hoodie frayed at the edges, and Eli moved the way kids from tough neighborhoods learned to move, quietly, cautiously, like he had to read every room before daring to breathe, not out of fear, but because he had learned that attention was a luxury he couldn't afford. Outside, dirty streaks of snow still clung to the sidewalks. The air was sharp and biting, and hurried footsteps stamped across the hallway tile. Eli paused in front of his newly assigned locker, a cheap sticker slapped onto a meaningless number. He glanced briefly at the unfamiliar faces streaming by like a river. No fear, just caution. In his first period math class, Eli entered to only a few side glances. A girl in the back corner whispered something to her friend. The teacher offered a small, polite smile and gestured toward an empty seat near the back. No introductions, no welcome. No one cared to ask his name. Eli didn't mind. In Detroit, where he had grown up, silence was a form of safety. He dressed plainly, wore regular shoes, no flash, no noise. Uncle Marcus, the man who had raised him, called it moving like a shadow. In neighborhoods like theirs, the more you stood out, the easier you became a target. But Millstone High wasn't Detroit. This was a place of brand-name jackets, spotless sneakers, and easy, confident laughter that filled the halls like a background soundtrack. Here, everyone acted like they were starring in their own perfect high school movie. No one spoke to Eli, but he noticed the quick glances at his worn-out shoes, the wrinkle of a boy's nose at his faded hoodie during gym class, as if dust from another world clung to him. By the third day, at lunch, Eli sat alone at a table tucked into the farthest corner of the cafeteria. His tray carried limp, cold spaghetti, a speckled, overripe banana, and a bland carton of chocolate milk. He ate slowly, listening to the room breathe around him. Darlie could read their laughter and stuffed her hands into her pockets. "Hey, you bring that food straight from the Great Depression or what?" Eli looked up. A tall guy in a varsity jacket stood a few feet away, Chase Dalton, football star, co-captain of the team, and self-proclaimed king of the junior class. Two boys flanked him, Zach Monroe and Brady Kent, both snickering, hungry for a show. Eli didn't respond. Chase sneered louder. "Dude eats like he's never seen real food before." More laughter followed, not from everyone, but enough to carve that silence even deeper. Eli finished his banana, expressionless. No challenge, no anger. A shove from Zach came next, playful but cruel. "Yo, you deaf or just stupid?" Eli shot him a single glance, cool, detached. Then he picked up his milk carton and stood. "I'm done eating," he said, voice low and steady. He walked away, leaving behind the half-eaten tray and a table full of hollow laughter. If the first shoulder check had been a spark, the days that followed at Millstone High were gasoline to a smoldering fire. The name Eli Matthews started spreading, not because of anything he had done, but because of what he hadn't. In the locker room, during gym class, Eli caught the whispers. "The new kid, he looks weird. Never smiles, never talks. Something's wrong with him. Word is he caused trouble at his old school, though no one actually knew where he had come from or what he had done. At a place like Millstone, even silence could be a crime." During basketball drills that afternoon, the coach paired the students off. Fate, or bias, stuck Eli with Chase Dalton. When Eli passed the ball back, he gave it a little extra push. Not enough to hurt, but definitely enough not to ignore. "Nice one," Chase growled, clutching the ball with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. From that moment on, Chase decided Eli needed to be taught a lesson. It started with small, dirty tricks. A wad of gum stuck to Eli's jacket, a light kick that sent his backpack sprawling across the hallway, a folded piece of paper shoved into the crack of his locker. "Go back to your ghetto, Eli." No retaliation, no reaction. He packed his things, picked up his bag, wiped off the dirt, and kept moving. But that silence only enraged Chase and his crew further. They needed a reaction, a punch thrown, a meltdown. The more Eli gave them nothing, the smaller they felt, and bullies never tolerated feeling small. Chase took it public, mocking Eli loudly in the cafeteria. "Hey, Matthews, from Detroit, huh? Need me to lend you a bulletproof vest?" A few kids laughed, brittle and hollow. The rest kept their heads down, staring into their trays. Eli, as always, calmly forked another piece of spaghetti onto his plate without sparing Chase a single glance. From an invisible shadow, Eli had become a growing crack in the foundation, and Chase Dalton had sworn he would crush that crack before it had a chance to spread. Cold wind slashed through the parking lot behind Millstone High. The sun was fading, dipping low against a bleak gray sky. Eli Matthews stacked the old folding tables after school, helping Mr. Patel, the maintenance supervisor. He wasn't in a hurry to get home. The after-school rush always felt suffocating. Staying late was simply a way to find a little peace. But Chase Dalton had other plans. He hadn't forgotten, and he sure wasn't going to let Eli off easy. As Eli crossed the backfield near the nearly deserted parking lot, only a few stray cars and bare trees remained. And there they were, waiting as if they'd been lying in ambush. Chase, with his two loyal shadows, Grady and Mitch. They leaned casually against the crumbling brick wall, arms crossed, pretending to be relaxed, but their eyes full of calculation. Eli knew today wouldn't end with just words. He kept his pace steady, backpack slung low, face unreadable. "Hey, Matthews." Chase's voice cracked across the empty air, sharp and cold. Eli stopped about 10 paces away, hands loose at his sides, eyes steady. "Keep ignoring me, huh?" Chase stomped forward, each step deliberate. "I didn't come here for you," Eli said flatly. "You don't have to," Chase sneered. "You just existing is enough to piss me off." Grady started circling to the back. Mitch popped his gum loud, the three of them closing in like a noose. Eli stayed motionless. "You think you're better than us?" Chase hissed. "You think you can just sit there and I'll let it slide?" Eli raised an eyebrow slightly. "If you've got something to prove, go ahead." That answer poured gasoline on the fire already burning in Chase's chest. Grady moved first, lunging with a shove aimed at Eli's chest. Sloppy, predictable, fatal. Eli sidestepped, fluid as water. A quick sweep of his foot, Grady lost balance and crashed face first onto the cold grass. Mitch's eyes widened. "Holy shit!" Chase roared, all pretense gone, charging full force with every ounce of muscle. But Eli didn't fight with rage. He fought with control. A simple pivot, a twist of the waist, and his elbow drove sharply into Chase's ribs. The football co-captain crumpled, gasping, clutching his side. All of it took less than 15 seconds. Grady wheezed on the ground. Mitch froze, hands up like he was caught red-handed. Chase writhed, unable to rise. Eli simply stood there. No gloating, no triumph, just still and silent like a rock in the center of the storm. Then, footsteps thundered from around the corner. Mr. Langford, the assistant principal, emerged, voice cutting through the cold. "What's going on here?" Chase struggled upright, stammering, He jumped us first." Eli turned to meet Mr. Langford's gaze, calm, unafraid. "They cornered me," Eli said, voice level. "I defended myself." Langford's eyes scanned the scene. 3 disheveled boys, dirty and staggering, and Eli, hands clean, shirt intact, breathing steady. "Office, now!" Langford barked. Eli nodded once. No excuses, no looking back. The disciplinary office weighed heavy like an execution chamber. Eli sat upright in the hard plastic chair, backpack neatly at his feet. Across from him, Chase, Grady, and Mitch lined up like soldiers defeated in battle, but their eyes still burned with anger and scheming. Mr. Langford sat behind his desk, rubbing his temples like he was trying to chase away a stubborn headache. "So, who wants to start?" he asked, scanning left to right. Chase immediately jumped in. "He attacked us," he pointed at Eli, voice high and desperate. "We didn't even touch him." Grady and Mitch nodded along, parroting on cue. Eli didn't argue. He simply held Mr. Langford's gaze, calm as if daring him to dig deeper. Langford sighed. The cameras out back were out last night because of the snow. No video evidence. A heavy silence fell. Chase allowed himself a small, smug grin. Grady winked at Mitch. Langford flipped open his notebook. School policy is clear. Any act of violence results in serious disciplinary action regardless of who started it. Eli spoke, voice low and firm. I didn't start anything. I defended myself. Langford looked up, hesitant. He wasn't a bad man, but he was used to resolving quickly, not investigating deeply. Look, Langford leaned back in his chair. I believe you didn't come here to start trouble, Matthews, but you need to understand, when a student gets into a fight, especially a new one, all eyes land on them. Chase smirked sideways at Eli. Eli didn't respond. We'll have to file a report, Langford continued. You'll have to attend a hearing before the school board next week. Until then, keep your head down. Eli nodded. Not because he accepted injustice, but because he knew real battles aren't always fought with fists. Langford rubbed his chin, voice dropping lower. The other boys will get warnings too. But Matthews? He paused. Around here, first impressions are sticky. That evening, Ellie came home late. Uncle Malik's basement apartment glowed faintly from the kitchen light. Come in, Malik called without looking up from wrapping a training client's hand. Eli dropped his bag, silent. Malik took one look at him and knew. You good? I'm fine, Eli replied, voice dry. Malik stood, placed a hand on Eli's shoulder. Sometimes the fight picks you, but when it does, winning isn't just staying upright. It's not letting it change who you are. Eli nodded, shadows darkening his eyes. Malik squeezed his shoulder gently, then let go. Carry enough to remember. Hold back enough to survive. Eli went straight to the gym. The punching bag swung slightly from a cold draft sneaking through the door. Eli wrapped his fists tight. One punch, then another, not to vent rage, but to remind himself. Real strength is control, not violence. Always thinned out as he passed. Conversations shrank away. Glances darted, then looked hurriedly elsewhere. No more loud jokes, only caution and fear. Eli recognized that feeling. In Detroit, people avoided trouble. Here, they created it and then blamed you for standing too still. At lunch, Eli sat at his usual table, untouched tray in front of him. Across the cafeteria, Chase held court, retelling a fabricated story about Friday night. That kid went wild, Chase snickered. Mitch barely touched him and he broke Logan's arm like a twig. Some kids laughed. Others just nodded uneasily. Eli clenched his jaw, swallowing his anger. He knew reacting now would only feed the fire. That evening, a blurry video clip appeared online. 15 seconds, no sound, no context. Only a shot of Eli twisting out of the way, Logan hitting the ground. Caption, new kid causing chaos, ready for round 2? Hashtag, millstone threat, not one of us. Expel him. In hours, it had dozens of shares. Comments flooded in. Who wants a psycho like that at school? Look at the way he moves. Ticking time bomb. Ship him back to where he came from. Eli sat in his room, face lit by the glow of his phone, scrolling through the poison. No surprise. No rage. Just emptiness. On Tuesday morning, security guards stood at the school entrance. Teachers glanced too quickly at him during roll call. Then the announcement crackled over the loudspeaker. All students involved in last Friday's incident must report to the board hearing Thursday morning. Eli closed his eyes for a heartbeat, then opened them again. He was ready for the real fight. At home, Malik met the news with a short nod. Board hearing? Yeah, Eli said, I have to defend myself. Malik leaned against the counter, arms crossed. You scared? Eli thought for a moment. What good would it do? Malik smiled, proud. Exactly. You don't have to prove how strong you are. Just show them you're right. The night before the hearing, Eli sat at his desk. blank sheet of paper in front of him. Malik had made him write it all out, every detail, no embellishments. "Don't let them tell your story," Malik said. Eli picked up the pen, took a deep breath, and began. "Not for victory, for the truth." Thursday morning, Millstone High held its breath. Eli walked into the boardroom. Pale walls, long table, chairs lined up like trial benches. One side, Principal Langford, a school board member, Ms. Vickers from disciplinary. The other, Eli, Malik, and a stack of typed notes. No Chase, no Logan, no Ty. Eli didn't expect them. Lies traveled faster than the truth. Langford opened, voice dull. "We're here to determine if Eli Harper poses a safety threat to the students of Millstone High." Malik leaned forward, voice hammer-steady. "My nephew isn't a threat. He's got better control than half the adults in this room." Ms. Vickers pushed up her glasses coldly. "We have videos showing Eli involved in a physical altercation." Malik scoffed. "A clip trimmed down to frame him. You know it too." Eli kept his voice calm. "They cornered me. I warned them twice." Langford shuffled his notes, searching for an angle. "We have reports you were suspended at your previous school." Eli looked up, steady. "That's false. I was never suspended." Malik slammed down the documentation. "Here's his clean record from Detroit." No immediate reply. Thick silence hung heavy. 1 second. 2. 3. Finally Vickers spoke. "We will consider this carefully. A decision will be sent out in the coming days." Eli and Malik stood. No rush, no retreat. Outside, Malik clapped him on the shoulder. "You did right, Adjutant. Don't let them make you forget that." Eli knew, though, this wasn't over. Friday. The hallways buzzed in whispers. Eli moved through them like a ghost. No laughter, no pats on the back, just wary glances, and sometimes fear. At lunch, Eli ate alone, empty tables stretched wider than ever. Then, a surprise, Delaney Foster, the girl with the big round glasses and faded backpack, slid into the seat across from him. No words, no hesitation, just 3 small ones. "I saw everything." Eli looked up, heart skipping. "What?" Delaney lowered her voice. "I was there. I saw it all." The cold breeze from the window bit at his skin, but inside him a small fire flickered to life. Delaney clenched her hands. "They lied. I can't stay quiet anymore." For the first time in days, Eli's eyes held not just caution but hope. Friday morning, the school felt frozen in place. No one said it out loud, but everyone knew today was decision day. Eli and Malik entered the small hearing room. Delaney was already there, clutching her backpack like armor. She met Eli's gaze, gave a slight, steady nod. Langford started. "Miss Foster, you claim to have relevant information about the incident." Delaney nodded, voice soft but sure. "I was near the back lot sketching for art class." All eyes locked on her. "I saw Chase, Logan, and Ty surround Eli. They taunted him, provoked him. He warned them. Twice. Logan swung first. Eli only defended himself." Her hands tightened on her lap. "He didn't start it. He just protected himself." No questions followed. None were needed. The truth had been spoken, and this time they couldn't pretend not to hear it. 2 days later, the email arrived. "Millstone High confirms Eli Harper did not violate the student conduct policy. No disciplinary action will be taken. Eli acted within his right to self-defense." Malik printed it out and taped it to their fridge. Eli stared at the paper. Black and white, cold and clinical. But to him it felt like a silent medal. No apologies came, no rumors retracted. But Eli knew he had stood firm, had refused to bend. In the halls, no whispers trailed him now. Chase didn't look his way. Logan disappeared into a new crowd. Ty changed lunch tables. Eli? He walked straighter, head a little higher. One afternoon, while packing his books, Delaney passed by. She didn't say anything, just lifted a hand in a small wave. It broke through the invisible wall around him. Eli smiled back. Not forced, not defensive, real, 'cause sometimes the people who saw the truth didn't need words. The last day before winter break. Snow drifted outside the windows. Millstone High buzzed with chatter about vacations and parties, but for Ellie Harper, a new kind of test was waiting. Near the end of the day, Miss Curtis, his English teacher, found him. "Ellie, we're having a student assembly this afternoon. Some students are speaking. I think you should, too." Ellie hesitated. He wasn't good with crowds, not good with feelings. Miss Curtis smiled gently. "You don't need a big speech. Just be yourself." The assembly was packed. Warm lights bathed rows of faces, eager, indifferent, curious. Eli Harper's name crackled from the speakers. His heart thumped against his ribs. No notes, no script. Eli stepped up to the mic. He looked down at the crowd. 1 second, 2, no pressure, all eyes waited. His voice broke the hush, soft but clear. "To many of you, I'm just the new kid, the quiet one, maybe the weird one from somewhere bad." Some murmuring stirred. Eli continued, steadier. "I didn't come here to be a hero or a problem. I just wanted to exist, same as any of you." He caught Delaney's gaze from the third row. She nodded once. Eli tightened his fists at his sides. "I learned that sometimes silence is mistaken for guilt. People fear what they don't understand." His voice dropped, but every word was steel. "But I'm not sorry for who I am. And I'm not going to disappear just because my existence makes someone uncomfortable." A heavy, loaded silence. Then, from the back, a single clap. Then 2, then 3. Then the whole auditorium, not loud, not showy, just real. As school let out, Eli stood on the steps, hands in his jacket pockets, breathing in the frozen air. Malik came up beside him, smacking his shoulder lightly. "Not bad for the new kid." Eli chuckled softly. From across the courtyard, Delaney and a few others waited, not out of pity, not out of obligation, just an unspoken invitation. Eli walked toward them, shoulders back, 3 steps forward. He knew his story didn't end here. It had only just begun. Because sometimes the greatest victory isn't beating the bullies. It's refusing to let them break who you are.